Hi, this is Breaking New Ground. I'm Eric Mieni. Thanks for joining us. Believe it or not, birthed by gold and at over 100 years old, Johannesburg is one of the youngest cities in the world. And maybe because of that, one of the most vibrant, diverse, and from a housing point of view, one of the most exciting. The inner city of Johannesburg, where we are today, is undergoing a major transformation. The city, province, and the private sector are putting a lot of money into revitalizing it. Many of the old buildings that went into disrepair when big businesses moved out of the inner city into the north, Sentin and those areas, are being reclaimed and restored. And a lot of money is being invested in transportation infrastructure, like the Gautrain, which will go from the south of Gauteng all the way north to Pretoria. Add to that the amount of money being invested in the city to prepare it to host the FIFA 2010 Soccer World Cup, and you get an idea of the scale of transformation that's happening in the city. Our journey begins here at Ponte City in Hillbrow, one of the best-known Johannesburg landmarks. At one point, there was talk of this building being turned into a prison. Thankfully, it is now being developed into an upmarket residential structure. Now, give me the history of Ponte. How did it come about, and how has it lived up to now?
It's a metaphor for Johannesburg. It was built in 1975. If you're rich and you'd made it, you came to live in Ponte. And it was a place that everybody came to just to gawk at, play bowls. Then it deteriorated. From about the 1990s, as the middle class fled the city, so too this city was deserted and occupied. The owners didn't really know what was happening, didn't really control the access to it. It went through a dark period. All sorts of nefarious things took place here. It had in its later years a much better history. Incidentally, the returnees, political returnees, many of them came to live here. Many famous people came to live in this building.
Now, what's your vision for Ponte? In terms of what it's gonna have, I see you have like commercial areas. What is it gonna be like in the end when you're done with it?
It's a self-contained area. It has its own lifestyle. So you live in Ponte, you'll be able to have everything at your fingertips. Have a DVD shop, a laundromat, an upmarket restaurant, convenience store, everything you want from a retail point of view. You have the most extraordinary views imaginable. It's a unique design. This is a building that's featured internationally in magazines because of its round nature. It's got the central core. It's always been very, very attractive to people to come have a look at. It's the icon of Johannesburg.
Yeah.
It stands for the city. You can go from here to the M1 in 2 or 3 minutes, north, south, get to the airport in 16 minutes, drive there in 16 minutes. Go
Without breaking any law, by the way.
1 or 2 maybe.
When do you envision Ponte to be ready for people to move in, to be what you've got in your head?
The first half of this building will be occupied in September. The next half of it will be occupied in April.
Wow.
It's fast.
Yes. So I buy this unit, what happens? You move the furniture out? Or?
You move in, it's fully furnished. Granite tops for the kitchens, marble in the bathrooms, porcelain tiles. Turn on your television, it belongs to you. You're on Wi-Fi inside the building. Download a video from our video bank, current films. Sit back, make yourself a martini.
This is the life.
You've arrived. The views are 180 degrees. You can see, because it's round,
yes,
you can see out from almost every direction. And it feels bigger than it actually is because of the round design. It's great. It's great.
It's fantastic.
It's great living.
Hillbrow was a fashionable high-rise suburb until late in the 80s. If you look around, you'll see pavements being replaced, buildings being renovated, and infrastructure being upgraded. A lot of the buildings that were squatted on have now been turned into social housing projects to provide rental stock for those in need. One of the agencies behind this is TUF, the Trust for Urban Housing Finance. Let's talk to them. So Paul, what does the Trust for Urban Housing Finance finance? What kind of projects does it finance?
Well, we finance projects that provide low and moderate income housing to people who are in the sort of poorer echelons of society. And normally we choose a project that is dilapidated, such as that project down there called Moonline Heights, which is at the beginning. It's been acquired by one of our entrepreneurs and will be developed, and hopefully will end up looking like this project over here, which is Coniston Court, this white building, which you'll see has been renovated to a high standard, and in fact belongs to the Coniston Court Housing Cooperative. We do it on the basis that we want to provide it in a sustainable basis, but we also want to promote urban regeneration. If you look at that project, Moonlight Heights, that is a dilapidated building. The glass is broken, there's extensive damp problems, it's empty. It used to be a complete slum, in fact, completely overcrowded, a lot of exploitation going on. And if you look at the finished product, you'll see that there's a viable, sustainable building that is adding to the neighborhood and all the development you can see going on around it.
Now, how does what you do dovetail with government's plan for providing housing, if it does?
Well, it dovetails in a whole range of ways. Most of all is we believe and subscribe to the requirements of the objectives of national policy, breaking new ground, in that we'd like to create affordable options for people to live in and near cities. We focus on city centres, and we'd like to create decent, affordable housing for that purpose. The second is that when you look at local government's development programs, if you look at these pavements, the Hillbrow Upgrade Project, driven by the Johannesburg Development Agency, which is an arm of Johannesburg City. If you look at the Chelsea Hotel, which is part of Johannesburg City's transitional housing, we invest in areas that support and complement their development programs. We participate with the city in the inner city charter development, in its housing objectives, working with their housing department. So in all sorts of ways, we seek to actively support and complement their programs by bringing in an independent development finance source, such as we have from TUF.
What do you think Hillbrow will look like in 2010, given the regeneration that's going on now?
There's certainly a convergence of forces around getting Hillbrow ready for 2010, and its important role, given the proximity of the Ellis Pass precinct and all the activities around there. But time is tight. People are cooperating. You can see it, private sector, local government, etc., all coming together at the same time. But there's not much give. And if Hillbrow is going to fulfill that very important 24/7 kind of center that is in fact the objective post-2010, I think everybody's got to cooperate, and there've got to be real special partnerships to pull it off. And TUF is committed to playing its role in that objective.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Paul. Good to meet you here.
And you, Eric. Thank you very much.
The city of Johannesburg has adopted a strategy of transport-based planning. To understand what that really means, we spoke to a member of the mayoral council of the city of Joburg, Rihanna Musaji. But what we do know is that central to this strategy is the Gau train, the biggest, most ambitious transportation project ever undertaken in South Africa.
Transport is vital to the citizens of Johannesburg because, in fact, everyone needs to move, whether we're talking about school children, people trying to access jobs and employment opportunities, or indeed people who are already employed, trips that are required to be made for household purposes, etc. At present in the city of Johannesburg, you have a 53% private car usage and 47% public transport use. Obviously, I think what we're trying to do in the city and indeed in Gauteng, in the province, is to begin to integrate the various modes of public transport, so to make transfers for commuters a lot easier than it currently is. Of course, historically, apartheid spatial planning has meant that the bulk of housing for the poor is actually located on the periphery and far away from job opportunities and economic activity. This then means that the average household, and in particular poorer households, are spending in excess of 10% of household income on transport costs. So for many people in our city, they in fact work in order to get to work. What we're not able to do in terms of physical relocation of housing settlements, we are, however, able to turn apartheid spatial planning on its head with the provision of public transport that is affordable, that is accessible, that is safe, and that is integrated. The Gautrain route has essentially been designed in a way to take cognizance of the global city-region concept. An acceptance that Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, and Johannesburg, in fact, for all intents and purposes, even though they are three separate metros, are really linked on the basis of economic activity and people's daily commute. In conjunction with that, they're also working with the housing department to ensure that all new housing development is actually well located, not only in terms of transport, but also in terms of available bulk infrastructure in water, electricity, so really responding to where there's still available bulk infrastructure. I think this becomes incredibly important because we're really saying that housing is not a standalone entity. As much as there's a Department of Housing in the city, the work of housing, the work of transport is very much being coordinated by the Development Planning and Urban Management Department.
We are traveling along the Gauteng transport corridor, which is going to be augmented by, made more convenient, and even more productive by the Gautrain. With the Gautrain, the Gauteng transport corridor is going to link all these neighborhoods to new industrial zones, making it easier for people to travel to and from work. Let's take a look at Holesbosch, which is alongside this Gauteng transport corridor. Well, here we are in Holesbosch, and I'm with Basitsana Malema, who's one of the project managers here. What's the scale of investment here in Holesbosch?
400 million rands has been put into the project.
When the project is done, how many houses are going to be here? What kind of development is it going to be? Okay,
it's an integrated project. We're having about 2,995 subsidized houses. And there's about 1,623 that's for institutional housing.
And that's rental?
And yes, that is rental. And we have 1,168 bonded houses.
And what facilities would you have in the end here for people to use? Do you have schools at all?
Yeah, they've catered for that as well. There's 2 sites for schools. There's sites for creches, parks, community centers, all inclusive.
And when do you envision this project coming to a conclusion?
Around 2010.
Okay. And everything will have been built by then?
Yes.
The one question that everybody asks sometimes that is kind of important is the importance of transport in a development like this. You know, what role does it play?
You know, we've been very fortunate because this project has been planned around the needs of the community. So obviously majority of the people from this area are working either in Midrand, others in Centurion, so transport facility is really not a problem. And they have also established about 3, if not 4 taxi ranks. And we are about 10 km away from the corridor, the Centurion corridor. So obviously that would make it easy for people to access either roads to where their workplace is or to the malls, or it's very easy for people to get to where they want to go.
And this is, part of it will be part of the Gautrain corridor.
Gautrain corridor,
It
yes.
comes somewhere past near here.
Yeah, it's about 10 k's away from the
Okay.
project
It makes it easy for
itself.
people to go to work, go shopping, visit each other, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's going to play a critical
Yes.
role.
You
Well,
do.
thank you for sharing with us on this Olive and Holtz project.
You're welcome.
Memegi, jwanong transport jwang mo Olive and Holesbosch?
Tse di re sokodisang ke tse tsa Gauteng le Midrand le Alexander a di kene bjalo ka di kena Pretoria re
Okay.
folwa gakana ka po 15.
Okay. Oh no, I know Ralevo. So we've traveled on the older part of the Gauteng transport corridor, the N1 and the M1, from Joburg to here in Pretoria, to get a sense of what a well-functioning transport corridor can do for housing. And of course, to speak to the head of department for housing in the Gauteng province, Benedicta Munama. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eric.
Let me start with one question that we ask everyone. How's Gauteng doing in terms of housing delivery?
Gauteng is doing very well. And what must show whether Gauteng is doing well is to look at what we had set ourselves to achieve last year and what we have achieved. We did set ourselves a target to achieve 58,000 houses, and we've actually achieved that and exceeded it slightly.
In what areas is Gauteng sort of leading and more innovative in terms of housing delivery?
We're leading in one of our programs that we refer to as would like to refer to as a flagship program, our mixed development program. This is a program that actually goes into the heart of the previous spatial patterns. I mean, obviously we know our residential areas were divided along racial lines. We can easily identify where the rich live, where the poor live. And with our mixed development program, we'd like to integrate, would like to ensure that South Africa, the new settlements that we're bringing about reflects the new South Africa.
We went to visit Olive and Holtbosch, and one of the tenants there was, by the way, extremely happy to be there. But she said that it's so much easier to access transportation to the north, Pretoria, and very difficult to access transportation to the south, Midrand and Joburg and such. And I know that Olive and Holtbosch is designed so that people can access both extremes quite easily. When is that going to be fixed?
You know, we're talking not of delivery of housing, we're talking of delivery of integrated human settlements. And surely in the near future, it should be possible to, I mean, the Department of Transport is working on improving the networks, it's working on improving the roads, it's working on ensuring that there's accessibility through their transport program planning.
Is the Gautrain going to be playing any role in this?
The purpose of the Gautrain is to improve mobility between the points that are set for its route. It's largely to address the economic routes and not necessarily the ordinary day-to-day transportation between the points in a suburb.
One of the things we also looked at was what TAF is doing in the city of Johannesburg. Is there a push by the Gauteng government to multiply those kind of agencies?
Oh yes, definitely. We actually have within our fold an organization that we refer to as the Gauteng Partnership Fund, or GPF in short, which does almost exactly what TAF does, leveraging finance in order to finance what we have come to refer to as social housing, which is largely housing for rental, different types of rentals. And it's also a promotion of partnerships between government, the private sector. Yeah.
There is a perception that, especially in the city of Johannesburg, there's an emphasis on converting buildings into upmarket, highly expensive lofts at the expense of what the TAFs are doing, which is converting the same buildings to affordable rental space. What would you say to that?
The perception is not quite correct. because the city has got a program targeting really provision of rental space to people in the middle to low income groups. Well, on the other hand, we can't have a Joburg of only low-income people to middle. It has got to be a city reflecting the population of Johannesburg. And yes, there will be those areas that are developed for the high-income group.
Thank you very much for clarifying all that on housing delivery in Gauteng.
Thank you very much for having me.
Please stay with us, because Thuli is going to take you through the BNG upgrade competition on this show.
Upgrade your policy with My Home from ABSA. SMS your full name to 32916 to apply. Let's break new ground together.
Thank you, Eric. Welcome back to our BNG renovation segment. Now, as you can see, today we're focusing on painting. Now, painting is a great way for you to personalize your home. It protects your home from wind, water, and rust. We're very fortunate today to have Plascon, who's come on board to sponsor all the paint for Gogo's house. What kind of things should one look out for when deciding to paint a house?
I think one of the most important is to make sure that the substrate, that's your plaster or brickwork, is quite firm and solid and not loose with dirt or gravel or anything attached to it, because this will obviously affect the quality of the painting work in the end.
I've heard preparation is very important. Why is this?
Preparation is very important. As you can see on our left, they're putting a primer on, which binds the paint to the plasterwork, and it's very important to make sure that it's clean and clear, and the paint should last for many, many years.
Apart from your obvious tools of paintbrushes, what materials are we using?
You've got a whole variety of tools you can use. The most easy, obviously, is a roller for a smooth wall, but when you've got houses like this where you've got cavities and stuff, it's best to use brushes, best to prime first and then paint over with the top coat.
How long does it take to complete painting a house of this size, inside and outside?
Well, obviously that depends on the labor, but generally a house like this would take a day to paint the whole outside and a day to paint the inside.
What are the costs involved in getting a contractor to paint a house for you?
Well, it's difficult to say. You know, if you go and buy the paint yourself and do it yourself, you could probably get away with as little as 600 or 700 Rand, depending on the quality of paint. Obviously, the better quality you buy, the longer lasting it's going to be.
Don't forget, if you have already started to renovate your home, as usual, please send us a picture of your home, because you could win yourself building materials to the value of 10,000 Rand. Start taking those snaps right now. You can send us a picture of your home to bng@housing.gov.za or simply post it to PO Box 31201, Braamfontein 2017. We'll see you again next week at Breaking New Ground. Have a fantastic week.
Upgrade your policy with My Home from ABSA. SMS your full name to 32916 to apply. Let's break new ground together.
Well, that's it for this edition of Breaking New Ground. I'm gonna head back to the Gauteng Transport Corridor and drive back to Johannesburg. Join us again next week, same time, right here on SABC2 as we travel around the country looking at housing. So long.